Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Welcome to another edition of Demo Days. Today's Monday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. JB, how you doing, man?
I am doing great, Garrett. I'm doing super great.
Oh, good, good. Sounds like
Yeah.
you and I were both doing some yard work and over the weekend. So that's
Yeah,
good.
it was a little crazy on my end. I may end up showing a picture of my yard that I did. It's not totally done yet, but it's on its way. So
Hey, I like that. I'm always driving by looking at people's yards and judging. So
yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Um,
That's funny.
so look at mine, but yeah, I need to keep up, but
Got to keep up with
um,
the Joneses, as they say, right? So
yeah. Uh, Yeah, the Joneses are what, a couple miles away, but yeah, we'll see. Uh, um, so for those of you who are joining us, we are streaming live, and we are also on LinkedIn, YouTube. Just to let you know that while JB is showing a demonstration of Domotz today, um, what we're going to be doing is when you leave comments, I'll put them live on the screen, and JB can answer them. You can ask them anything you want,
really,
um, and or if you just want to make a comment like awesome, go for it. Also, after the fact, it will be recorded, so you can visit the recording later and leave a comment as well. So,
I want to see as many
JB.
awesome comments as possible. Okay, Garrett, that's my goal here.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, let's see what we can do. So you start showing a picture of your yard, suddenly everybody's
Oh
coming out of the
yeah,
woodwork.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. So man, tell us about yourself, Domotz. Like, what's going on?
So, JB Fowler, JB stands for John Braden, but JB was just easier to go to, and I have to say my family told me one time that people that go by their initials usually are troublemakers. So that fits right in with
I
who
was
I am.
just thinking that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we probably get in some trouble. Get some beer and then like,
you know,
so
I did. I did. Um, been in the service provider industry for, geez, going on 14 years now, right? Working in all sorts of different service organizations, from everything from like residential integration to commercial integration. Worked for uh, networking switch manufacturers, right? Which led me into Domotz, which is a network infrastructure monitoring solution. And I've been here roughly 7.5 to 8 years, really since our instantiation. So been around for quite a while, doing business development, doing sales, doing support, doing everything to get this thing going.
nice. So they gave you your own office at like the 7-year mark, or you've always
It's one of the things that they give you. Yeah. I mean, I had to build that sign back there, but I really like it, so.
that's good. Uh, well, man, I am familiar with you guys. I know you've been around for a while. So as somebody who had an MSP, um, I definitely remember the early days because I was looking at all kinds of stuff in the management
Yeah.
perspective, and very interested to see what you guys are doing now. And what I'll do is, I know you have something to share. You want me to go ahead and bring that up now, or you want to?
Let's talk, before you do that, let's talk about what we
Yeah.
are, right? And what we've
All right.
become, because, those that know us from the beginning certainly understand a little bit of our background. The core value of what Domotz does as a network infrastructure monitoring solution is really helping you as a service provider to understand what's going on in the network. Everything
Mm-hmm.
from the ISP down to your routers and firewalls, to manage switches, to wireless access points. But more importantly, it's about understanding all of the different endpoints and systems that are connected to that infrastructure. One of the things that we do to differentiate ourselves is discovery of all the assets that are on the network. And it's not just by IP address, this is by MAC address. So we do a layer 2 discovery, which is a little bit deeper than what some of our other competitors that are out there do. And I think that really, really helps the service provider get a better understanding of what's on the network, how it's connected to the network, what it's doing on that network, and ultimately letting you better manage that. So that's our core value of what we do. We're going to talk and show some different ways in which we do that, and how we can remotely connect into those devices. We could do demos about how we aggregate more data from those systems as well, so that you as a service provider can have a deeper understanding of what's going on in the network and, again, how those systems are behaving.
I like it. Well, I know that is extremely important, because that is one of those things where we were on a call last week, sort of similar, but it was one of those things where I was like, as an admin, L1, L2, anybody, I need to know what is going on, just
Right.
a plug-in somewhere. Gone are the days with, platforms such as yours, of calling into the office, asking the receptionist who just started, hey, can you get up and can you walk behind there and take a picture of the ports and just plug it in? I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Just stay right there, because that was a reality at one point, unless
Yeah.
you just really had a lot of enterprise type stuff set up. But then again, this is back in the day, at least my day, But
Yeah, systems today are more complex, right? Things are distributed in a wider way. You're dealing with cloud-based devices as well as local devices and systems that are connected in between, right, with hybrid capabilities. The other thing I would say, Garrett, and this is a really important part, especially for service providers and IT departments to understand, is that there are more and more systems getting connected to the network. Right? It's not just the PC going to the network switch or the PC going to the Wi-Fi access point. There are, the ubiquitous IoT devices that are out there that are just everywhere. People are plugging Alexas. People are plugging picture frames, right, into the network. And if the IT department doesn't have a really good understanding of what these systems are, what they're doing, how they're behaving, how they can affect your network, right, how it can create a vulnerability, right, from a security footprint perspective, then you as an IT department, if you don't understand that, you're going to be in a world of hurt, right? Or you could be. So you're at risk. So I think a solution like Domotz, giving you visibility into that, is what makes it so very, very powerful. So should we demo this?
Yeah, man.
I mean, it is called Demo Days, so we should probably share my screen and go from there.
You know what? I think I can help you. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Let's see here. And for those of you joining, feel free to add comments on LinkedIn, YouTube. We will see them here. So let's see what we have. Let me go ahead and push us down to the bottom left. There you go, bro. All right.
Beautiful. I like it. So let me start off by saying Domotz is a cloud-based solution, right? All of our intelligence lies in the cloud. There does need to be a collector, as we call it, that sits on the local area network. That local area network can be multiple VLANs, right? We can look at, you can configure the network interface cards on the host that our software is residing on into many different systems. And Garrett, let me say that before we get into the user interface, right, when it comes to the collector, there's a number of different ways in which you can deploy a collector. The most widely used is something like the Windows agent. Okay, so that's the easiest thing to deploy. A lot of people have that. It's a great way for testing and validation. But if there are other servers, whether they are Linux-based servers or you want to go through something like a hypervisor or a VirtualBox, Docker, you can do that as well. So deploying the collector is as simple as you want to make it or as powerful as you want to make it. The other thing which a lot of people don't realize is that Domotz actually has a little black box, a little tiny server that's available as well. If you go to Amazon, you'll see it's $139. It's a little ARM-based processor, but we're seeing more and more service providers not have maybe local hardware, right, or available resources. So plugging in a little box like this just makes it that much easier to deploy our system. Protectly is another good host. This looks like a little NUC, essentially, right? It's an Intel Celeron-based processor with a dual NIC interface. You can see this thing is only $229 though. It comes with Domotz pre-installed on it. Super easy to deploy as well. Nice little robust piece of hardware. So just for some things that people can look at and how they can deploy the Domotz collector. So that
That's cool.
collector, oh, go ahead.
I say, no, I like that. That's cool. I always like hardware just
Yeah,
because, you
makes
know,
it nice and easy, right?
yeah, I call that receptionist haking. I'm kidding. But, so,
The collector is securely communicating with our cloud, but it is the cloud then that our web UI, our desktop application, and another little known fact, we actually have a mobile app as well for the Domotz user interface. Any way in which you need to get into to visualize your data, you can do that through Domotz. We have a couple different screens within the Domotz platform. This is our what we call NOC screen, right? Our network operations center screen, where you can
mhm.
get high visibility into the sites that you have deployed or the devices and systems that you're deploying. Each one of these dots that are here are essentially a collector that has been
Hmm.
deployed to a location, and we're just visualizing the status. Simple red, yellow, green. If it's green, everything's kosher, running as we expect. Whereas when something goes to the extreme and goes red, it means that the collector is no longer communicating with the cloud. Could be because of a power outage, could be because somebody unplugged a cable, right? There's lots of reasons that that could happen. But it's to give you, as the service provider or the IT department, awareness that this particular site may be in a troubled state. When things are yellow, right, that just means that there are important devices or there may be a security issue that we've discovered here as it relates to ports being opened, you may want to fix, or new devices even being discovered. Let's go into a particular site. We'll go into this lab here. We've changed our UI a little bit since you probably saw it last, Garrett. We've gotten rid of some of these tiles. Some people may still see this. This is something we're rolling out in the next 30 days, but I'm excited because it's a lot faster navigation. A couple things that I want to say about how we work, and then we'll talk about some of the different ways in which Domotz can be used inside your systems or your environments. When a collector is activated on the network, the very first thing that we do is we go and discover all of the different devices that are available to this collector. So we're looking at all of the different VLANs. If you've configured the host to look at multiple VLANs, then Domotz will just automatically scan those VLANs. So if you have a data LAN and an audio video LAN and a security LAN, and if you put us on a guest network, right, we could scan all those things and come back with all of the different MAC addresses that are on that. Okay, so we're looking at layer 2. Of course, we look up to layer 3 to tell you the IP address information, but it's really important to note that we're also looking at all of the application protocols that are being broadcast by every single device that's out there. We use this information to enrich the data with the make of that device, the model, and more importantly, I think the type. So when you are deploying Domotz into a system, we're really looking at what are these devices that are on the network and how can I, as a service provider, better understand what these are rather than just getting a whole bunch of IP addresses, maybe MAC addresses that I don't have much information on.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that we do when we have discovered all these devices, and I'm going to look at two different things here. One is while I'm on this camera. First of all, we'll look and see which TCP ports within each and every device are available for management purposes. So you can imagine that a security camera would have something like port 80 that's open to it for management. So you could log into that system and see what's going on. I'll just tell you right now while I'm on this camera, another thing that we do is we look for standard-based protocols. Okay, so we'll look for things like OnViv being broadcasted by a security camera. If we see that it is OnViv compliant, we give you the ability to look at the streaming profiles coming from that camera. We give you the ability even to take a snapshot. So in the end, not only are we going to tell you that this camera is online, but we're also going to tell you that it's functioning properly and pointed in the right direction. So, and by the way, that's my yard. I had to get to it, Garrett, since we were having discussions about that. So that's what I was doing all this yard work on this weekend. So
I like it. I like it.
So more importantly, when we go back to this page, right, we've looked for ports, we've looked for all these devices. I want to talk about the network infrastructure, right? One of the things that we do is we look at the routers, the firewalls, the managed switches, and then we try to interrogate those systems deeper so that we can get more information about those devices. You do need to, as you can expect, give us things like SNMP credentials into
Yeah.
those systems so that we can look at the RFC protocols and see what's out there from an SNMP point of view. We're going to talk a little bit here about things like configuration management and extracting more data. So as long as we have some of the command line interface logins information, we can start to see that data. And in fact, in this case, right, we can see all of the devices that are connected to this managed switch. We pull out about 16 different sensors or OIDs from the switch, and we do 16 from each port. Okay, so in fact, let's go look at that camera that we were just looking at. We can see things like how much bandwidth is being broadcasted across this switch. We can see how much power is being consumed because this is a PoE-based camera.
Mm-hmm.
We can see average upload, download speeds, and how this port is configured. We also can look at things like errors and packets. I hope there's no errors coming out of this, but if there were errors, we would see that as seen by the switch. And if there was any discards, being dropped or information being dropped. Very common to see errors and discarded packets on things like trunk ports where there may be a lot of bandwidth consumption. We take and aggregate all this data into our system so that way you as the service provider can make a better judgment call about what's going on in the network, right? If you start to see problems and you need to troubleshoot things.
Yeah, this is we did a lot of camera systems for a lot of our clients. Some have very expansive networks, multi-site. So definitely didn't have anything like this. We'd log in and, we'd have some sort of management, but this is very interesting how the granular ability of the power for the PoE. I like that. This is cool. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I can actually power cycle a port here, right? If I wanted to turn off this camera and do a hard power cycle, I could do that directly from the Domotz UI, which in some cases take security cameras. You also could have in-wall touch screens, things of that nature in a building that you may need to reset because it's in a bad state. Power cycling it usually solves the problem 80% of the time if you need to get it done quickly. So this is just very quick access to doing something like that.
Stupid question, but can I schedule power cycles if I wanted to, like once a month, weekly?
So we're going to talk about how you can do some scripting and automation to do those types of things, as a matter of fact. So, and that you're getting kind of deeper into the weeds there already, Garrett. So I like it.
Well, I'm already thinking like, okay, the closet secretary. I'm like, hey, can you turn off?
Oh yeah, you know where this can go exactly. So let me show you a little bit more about the switch. Configuration backups, right? So within managed switches, firewalls, you often have a configuration that you want to build. It may be a common configuration that you do. One things that Domotz will do is we will interrogate the running configuration as well as the startup configuration within the system. We will save the running configuration to the Domotz cloud inside this account associated to that device. And we will just back it up. 6 hours later, we'll do another check. If we see a change to that configuration file, we can alert you to say, hey, the running configuration has changed. So that way, if you expected it, it's one thing, but if you didn't expect it, right, it's another thing, right? We will save that new file also to the cloud, so you'll have both saved in there. If the startup configuration is misaligned from the running configuration, we can alert you to that as well. So let's say you did make some changes, whether it was on-site or remotely, and then you forgot to save that. Domotz gives you the ability here to actually save that running config directly to the startup config. Likewise, if you need to revert that, to a previous configuration, you can do that as well. So this is where I think we see a lot of power within the Domotz platform.
So is this, now you may accuse me of getting into the weeds again, but sorry. Um, so if, say, a camera craps out, we need to order a new one.
Mhm.
And maybe it's just one of those, like, hey, to the client, just put this on your, at the top of your whatever. Maybe they're overlook at the retail shop, whatever. Nothing
Yeah.
crazy. Just plug it back in. It's a different MAC address. It's going to be different. Can I use the prior camera, the angle, all that? Can I use this configuration with some finagling and apply it and then
So
back online?
So we're looking at the managed switch, right? So this is
Right.
the configuration backup for the managed switch. But in the instance where the switch went bad and you need to RMA that and you
Mm-hmm.
needed to pull in a configuration file, absolutely. You can do that directly, right? That configuration file is saved on the old MAC address, but
Mm-hmm.
you can download that. You can then upload it to the new MAC address and then have it going, right? You never lost time that way. So yes, that is very, very possible with the Domotz platform here.
That's a big time saver. I like it. Yeah. Especially for
Yeah,
L1s who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Just restart, man. So
right. Exactly.
I like it.
So we feel from an infrastructure point of view, right, being able to see this, get visibility. And by the way, I should mention this now. This is agnostic to the network that you're using. So whether you're using Cisco, you're using Juniper, you're using Sonic firewalls or Sonic Wall firewalls, you're using Fortinet, right? Whatever it may be, right? Domotz has this same look and feel across all these, even if you're dealing with Ubiquity and the unified platforms, right? You can bring all that information into Domotz and get this same look and feel. There's many times where, especially service providers, an IT department is usually going to align on a brand or a platform.
Mm-hmm.
But with service providers, sometimes they have to go with Ubiquity, sometimes they go with Cisco, sometimes they go with, Aruba and whatnot. Domotz is giving the level one techs, like you said, a common platform to understand what their customer environment looks like and what's going on with that within that environment. I will point out a few things that is very beneficial also to the service providers. So you may recall that we looked at we discover which ports are available for management within a given switch or system.
Yeah.
In this case, right, I think we can just pull up port 80 on this device. I'll create a connection. What is going on right now is my laptop here in the office has requested a connection to the Domotz cloud. The Domotz cloud is then created or told the collector that's inside that network to create a reverse connection back to the cloud. So it's doing a technique of reverse SSH. We are not opening up ports at the firewall to do this, right? We're going from the inside out, which is a best security practice here. But now I'm at the interface of this particular device. And if I can remember.
Yeah, I'm looking at your URL. Like, that's when I first noticed it. I was like, hey, wait, that's different. So, okay.
Yeah, so this URL that's at the top is unique to my laptop. Even if I were to copy and paste that over to a colleague's laptop here in the office, it will not work. So this is a way in which we can create a really quick connection into any device that's on that network. Benefit, of course, being that now I can go in and deal with these things. I mean, security cameras are one thing, but there could be other IoT-based systems. In the world of commercial integration, there's audio video systems that may need to be managed. So this is a way in which you can get into any of those systems. I'm going to show you one more thing here as well. So here we made a connection directly to a device through this technique of reverse SSH. I also can create a VPN tunnel. So Domotz has the ability to turn the collector directly into a VPN host. And we do that on demand. We call this feature VPN on demand. The idea behind this is you're creating a temporary connection that sets your laptop on the network, on the remote network, holistically. I'm not going to do it since we're on a live webinar here, but if I were to click open this tunnel, what will happen is that a configuration file would be downloaded to my laptop. At the same time, the collector is turning into a VPN host. I then can use something like OpenVPN or TunnelBlick with that configuration file and create a secure connection over the Domotz environment. And here's the best thing about this. While it's my laptop that's getting put on that network, I'm using the Domotz credentials. So when I've logged in through SAML or SSO and I've used two-factor authentication, right, however I've gone in there, I'm using those credentials to get into the environment. I didn't have to use a common username and password that was set up in the router or the firewall in this case. So again, we're averting another security vulnerability by keeping credentials consistent. The other thing is that this is a temporary connection. Once this tunnel times out, which is after 60 minutes, then it's completely terminated. The configuration file goes bad. And in order to connect again, I have to go create another new configuration. Again, just helping you with security.
That's interesting. I like that. That's a good approach.
It's a unique feature that I don't think a lot of people see, right? So, and again, it's about how can I go in and better understand what's going on in my network and manage the system better. I will say from within this Sites Explorer page and even within this particular site that we're in, there's a lot that we can show. I'll mention this one thing, the security tab, and then we'll go into some of the alerting and some of the different dashboard capabilities. Security.
Let me jump in. For those of you who are just joining us, just to let you know, because you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, feel free to drop a question for JB, comments, anything at all, and we'll see if we pull them up. I just want to let everybody know that this is live. We will see your comments. So, I just wanted to interrupt there, JB. Go ahead.
I like it. No, I like it. We need to get some good questions in here. Hopefully people are seeing things that are intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
While Domotz is a network infrastructure monitoring solution, we're not necessarily a SOC, right? We're not doing SOC operations. It is important to note that the network does do some things that can be seen as security vulnerabilities, right? When a new device shows up on a network or a VLAN and it shouldn't be there, right? That can be seen as an issue. So when we do device discovery and alerting to what these systems are on the network, we think that's important. Domotz is going to discover the device. We're going to, again, classify it by make, model, type. We're going to tell you where it's located in the network, whether it's from a Wi-Fi perspective or directly connected to the network. We're going to give you as a service provider visibility into all of that. So this is one of the things that Domotz does. And in fact, when you think about CIS controls or other security processes that are out there, right? NIST, CMMC, things of that nature. Knowing what's on the network and knowing where it's where it's configured within the network is a critical part of any security process. So we're given visibility to that.
Quick question. I'm sorry. If you go back to that, I just noticed the Spotify group session was listed as under device discovery. Is it because you have two devices that are talking to each other, or what? If you don't mind, I mean, that's kind of a
it's a great question. So what's going on? So this IoT lab, right, is really my house that we're doing here. So that's why you saw the camera looking at my front yard. In this particular case, I have an home automation system in my house. I've got an audio distribution system. And so in this case, when my boys I think it was this weekend actually, no, it must have been last weekend, but they were over at the house, they created a group session with Spotify into the audio distribution system. And it gets registered as a device or a Mac on the network with the way the system works. And so this is how it gets classified so that they could then stream their music outside or wherever they did that. So
just curious, I didn't even throw you off. I was like, what? So,
no, I love it. I love it. I mean, the fact that Domotz is able to see these things happening in real time and then give you
Yeah.
awareness to it is really what the key is. I mean, it's not, you don't have to necessarily be able to explain immediately what's going on with this,
Hmm.
but knowing that something's going on so that you can go isolate it or,
Yeah.
you know, find out what the issue is before it becomes a problem. If that was the case, that's important.
I like that.
Other network security things that we do. Okay. When we are, let's see if we have any issues here. Yeah, there's nothing shown right now. But when there is a port open from the router or firewall, so from the cloud back into the network, Domotz will tell you. We'll show
Hmm.
when there is a particular port that's open on an interface. It's a TCP port, right? So you may have port 51,000 open or port 80. A lot of times port 80 is open for people that may be hosting a web page from their IP address. That may or may not be a bad thing, right? What Domotz is doing is giving you awareness that the port is there so that
Hmm.
then you can set an alert or be alerted to that port being open. It's up to you once you see it to either accept or reject that port. If you accept it, then fine, right? Just know that it's there. We won't alert you again. If you reject it, the assumption is that you're going into your firewall or your router and you're either closing that port or you're making sure that that device behind that port is secure in some way. So that's a critical part of what we do. And I will tell you that we also do this with things like UPnP. I hope, right? UPnP is a very legacy technology. I hope that anybody listening to this just disables UPnP servers. But you'd be surprised how many times, especially when you have something like Google Fiber coming into a business or you have Comcast coming into a business and they're using the standard ISP modem or router, how
Yeah.
often this is just enabled, right? So
Well,
it's again a vulnerability.
that's definitely a common. Yeah. ISPs. Yeah, man. Yeah. That's
You know it happens. You
yeah.
know it happens. Let's talk about alerts real quick, and then we'll get to our dashboards. So Domotz is very, very powerful for its ability to not only give you specific network alerts that are occurring, things like
Hmm.
when the site goes offline, when new devices are discovered, or again, those security issues. We also have the ability to tell you when your public IP address changes or when the LAN itself, when configuration within the LAN changes. Um, those are all important alerts when it comes to the infrastructure of the network itself.
Yeah.
You'll notice at the bottom here, we have a network performance test too. So we can tell you when the ISP speed tests are going below a particular threshold. Right? If you expect to get, a gig speed, but you're only seeing 300 megs, that could be a problem, right? That could be a challenge for your customers. Same on the upload side. So we can put thresholds in there. And in fact, I don't know if I clicked on this earlier, but this connectivity page, right? This is showing you ISP speed tests that have happened over the last year. You can see here, right? Sometime in the June timeframe, I reconfigured my network and ended up boosting my performance, right? A lot of this had to do with how I was handling quality of service within the router and stuff. And in
That's
fact, we're going to talk about QoS and some other network diagnostics that we can do here too.
well. That's the difference right there. I'm looking at that basement right there, and then you jump. Okay. Cool. I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of variability in this because of the way my system is configured, right? I do have Google Fiber in this, but I'm also running this host on an ARM-based processor, right? Our little black box. So you see variability, but I'll also tell you I have 6 different collectors running in this same network. So we get inconsistencies on this, but if you're running the Domotz collector on a Windows server or another high-end server, inside a normal environment, you're going to have much better performance on this. We can do things, right, like route analysis. So if we need to actually start to analyze how packets are leaving our system and where they're going, we can do that. And of course, we can
Mhm.
get a whole bunch of information about what's going on within the network itself, right? What my WAN ISP looks like. So that right there is super powerful. We can also look at each individual device within a network, and within each device, and I'll just grab one here to go and look at. So let's go take and look at these alerts. We can do things like when the device goes up, when it goes down, if its IP address changes, okay, those types of things. We also can look for when a TCP service goes down. So you can imagine in fact, let's do this just for kicks and grins. Let's just go back to that camera that we were looking at before. So when it comes to alerts, right, we can look for things like port 80 going offline. So if for some reason the network interface card on a device is responding to pings, that's one thing, right? You may think that the system's online, but if we can do TCP checks, right, to validate that the host processor is actually functioning as we expect, we get a better understanding of what that system's behavior really is and if it's actually online. Right, port 80 is a great thing to check. You may want to check 443. In the case of servers, you may want to look at RDP as an example. You can also go in and look at SNMP sensors within a device. We are going to talk about latency checking. So with each device that we have on the network, we actually will ping that device and we'll look for things like round trip delay on this. So here's an example of a graph that we're looking at where we're seeing the behavior of this system. This isn't very exciting because it is a wired connection. But if I were to go to something like Ratio right here, this is a wireless device that's sitting on the edge of my network. And actually it looks like it's behaving fairly well. But there are some times with this system, I will see spikes or I'll see areas where packets just completely drop because of noise or poor connectivity. And we track that. Right? We will inform you when packet loss is getting above a particular threshold or the average latency is going beyond what we want. So just another powerful tool within Domotz. Anything that you're seeing here, Garrett, that's interesting to you?
Well, no, I mean, initially, I'm thinking about this. You're at your office. This is, you're at your home. So I love the fact that you're showing this in real time. A remote location. This isn't just something, So that really says a lot about, especially this demo. Like, you're effortlessly managing a remote site you're looking at. So it's pretty cool.
Yep.
I saw the Cloudflare DNS. I know you didn't get to it, but I'm going to assume that is for the router, or does it also, going to look at the DNS proxies for each workstation as well, or
you can?
Is it okay?
Yep. So what I have done here. So if you look at all the devices, let's just look here. I have put in a couple of external services, as we call it. So it's one thing to configure Domotz. In fact, if you look on the right-hand side, if you configure Domotz to look at just your standard VLANs, we're going to discover all the devices that's in your local area network. Yeah. You do have the ability to configure a routed subnet. So if you want to look just beyond your firewall and look at a routed IP address, maybe to the modem, you could do that. If you wanted to segregate a LAN, okay, maybe you wanted to have a point of sale system LAN inside of a retail shop. You don't really want to be scanning. You don't want to have a VLAN on that for PCI compliance reasons, but you may still want to be able to see the IP addresses that are on that, right, at a layer 3 level and ping them to make sure they're online. You can do that with Domotz, okay? You also can do this external host. So here you can see all these different hosts that I've put on here, right? Google, Cloudflare, and these were just more for demonstration purposes. BlueJeans would be something like a VoIP or unified communications provider. AirThings is, and I'll show you this as well. This is an indoor air quality sensor that is connected directly to a cloud. So I'm making sure that their services are working properly. When we have systems like this, and let's just go to, actually, I don't know why Cloudflare is not showing this, but let's go to this Domotz system, right? We can do latency checks to these. And in fact, if there was a service that was connected to this system, like port 80 or port 443, right, we can validate and check that as well. Okay. If we needed to connect to this, if it made available and I had the credentials, I can connect to that external service, right, that I'm seeing or that we've discovered. So this is another way in which we can look outside of our network into systems that we are managing or deploying, or that our customer is using. Maybe you want to ping Microsoft or Zoom and make sure that Zoom is working. We can do that within
So
Domotz.
I have a question. To go back to that USL API,
Mhm.
I've been seeing that the blue bar usage chart on the right says add more capacity. It says the overall usage for this agent is and it's 102. Is that for is that you guys or what is
That is,
the
yeah,
capacity?
that is me, right? So that's
Okay.
when we make a remote connection into a
Hmm.
system,
Yeah.
we are leveraging bandwidth, right? You're going bandwidth
Yeah.
from your device into the Domotz cloud and then down into that system. We are aggregating that bandwidth and then showing you how often you have connected to that system. You can
Okay.
imagine I'm not doing a lot of connections here, um,
Hmm.
because I don't need to do things like firmware upgrades or transfer a lot. If you were a headquarters and you were managing a bunch of retail stores and you needed to push firmware updates, whether it was to manage switches or to IoT devices or security cameras, if you're a security provider, you could do that and it would start to consume some of that bandwidth. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this is just a gauge to understand how much bandwidth you're utilizing through the Domotz connections.
All right. All right. And it's per device or across? Okay. So,
It
yeah.
is it is across the whole site,
Okay.
okay, that you're
Yeah.
looking at.
All right. Gotcha.
I wanted to tell you also about alerts in
Hmm.
that while we can do alerts to the to the account you've logged in as, or you can do even push notifications to your mobile phone, you
Hmm.
can also do shared alerts. And a shared alert is something where you will push or when an event happens, you can push a notification to a PSA tool, right? So something like Autotask, ServiceNow, ConnectWise Manage, right, or ConnectWise PSA, or I should say at the same time, if you want to push that same alert to an email, or if you want to do a notification to Microsoft Teams and Slack, you can do that. So there are many different ways in which you as a service provider can get an understanding of what's going on in the network through
Hmm.
these types of notifications. We call them shared alerts because you can do one or more triggers to different services. And in fact, if I come down to the bottom here, I think a lot of the more technical people will really start to see the power of this. I can push notifications into third-party services like Node-RED or Zapier. So now I can start to kick off automations in a very easy to use graphical sense. Right? If I wanted to get an alert into Node-RED that then did something unique to a third-party service that I have within Node-RED as well, right? Maybe it's trigger a light, maybe it's send off more emails. We can do all of that. If I wanted to do an analysis that says if a device goes offline and it stays offline for X number of minutes or hours, then power cycle it, which I think you had a use case where you talked about that at the beginning, right?
Hmm.
Maybe I wanted to do kick off something at 3 a.m., right? When somebody's not using it, you can use these services for that. So these shared alerts are awesome for ticketing systems. One thing that we do as well is, let's say a device, let's again go back to that security camera because that's an easy one. If a security camera falls offline,
Hmm.
but then 10 minutes later it comes back online, Domotz can not only open a ticket to say that it went offline, but we also have the ability to close that ticket when that system comes back online. This gives you historical information inside your PSA, but then it also lets you know that Domotz has taken care of that ticket
Yeah.
automatically. So we think that that is one of the better or advantageous things of using Domotz here and these shared alerts. Let's talk about these monitoring dashboards. Any service provider is going to be dealing with a customer that may have, or many organizations that they're dealing with. We are a multi-tenant platform, so being able to have visibility into all of your organizations or your companies you're dealing with is where we start. You can then break the sites that you're looking at, right? So you may have an organization that has multiple physical locations. You can put those into the Domotz structure. And then within Domotz, you can also look at all the devices across all your sites and all your organizations. So if I wanted to do a query for Cisco switches and I wanted to go look in particular at, say, SG350s that are in my system, I can do that. I can filter very quickly by all of those. So here I'm looking across 3,200 different devices. You can see how fast it was for me to find Cisco SG350s.
Yeah, that was.
I can see how these things are configured within Domotz. I can see when they've shown up. I can take actions on these if I needed to do so. If I wanted to save the configuration files, right, so I can then push it to other ones, I can start to do that. So we think that this drives efficiency within the service provider's environment. And if somebody is asked to go look at, hey, tell me how many 350s we have throughout all our customers, a level 1 tech can go easily do that and say, okay, there's 5 SG350s and here's their locations that they're at. I think, and by the way, you can create these custom filters and then save them, right, to views that make sense to you, because certain people may only care about network infrastructure. Other people may care about security systems. Other people may care about printers. They can create the views that are ideal for them. And speaking of that, monitoring dashboards. If you want to create customized dashboards to look at very specific systems, right? Here we're looking at cameras. We've flavored them up in different ways to see what's the status of these from a networking point of view, what's their uptime been, what's the latency of particular cameras that we have. These are a great way for any user to look at their networks, look at their customer sites in a way that is customized to them. If I wanted to bring up tables that look at very important customers versus less important customers, I can do that and see their sites, or I can bring in specific devices. If I wanted to look at ink levels within printers, I can do that too, and I can bring that directly onto these tables using SNMP sensors.
Wow, that's printers, especially. That's printers are just like little zombies. You just never know what they're going to do.
They are zombies. You're right. Let me point out here one of the things that I think differentiates Domotz from others in this space. We have a network troubleshooting table here. Because we are a layer 2 discovery utility, we can see MAC addresses that are on the network, but we also are looking at things like DHCP requests that are going across the network. When we see 2 MAC addresses that are competing for the same IP address, we can alert you to that. Right now, none of my sites have any conflicts, but if I did have a conflict here, I would see a table, or it's say an IP conflict registered or known. It would then go to a table that shows which MAC addresses are competing for that IP address, so you know how to deal with that. The other thing that we do is we can look at a site that may be making a high number of DHCP requests over time. The reason that this is interesting is looking at things like network loops. So if a network loop is enabled in an environment, if a device where that network loop is sitting makes a request, you will often see that request come through multiple times. So a spike in DHCP requests can be a sign of that, and we can help troubleshoot where that is. And in fact, we will list out all of the different devices that are on the network making those requests, and you will be able to troubleshoot that more accurately, like which section of the network is happening there. One other thing, we were talking about ISP speed tests before, right? And the ISP speed tests that we do. We implement things like buffer bloat grading. So, Garrett, are you familiar with buffer bloat and what that is?
No, I mean, I'm thinking about what it could be, but go ahead.
So, at a high level, right? First person shooters look at this, first person shooter games, I should say, look at this stuff religiously because, as they say, latency kills. And so, if their ISP is, if they're seeing that the latency increases under a very loaded network,
Mm-hmm.
their latency will change. So if you have people streaming videos, playing games, doing things like that all at the same time, and you don't have quality of service set properly at the router, at the firewall level, you will get a higher latency. Domotz is checking for that and validating that. So in the world of unified communications, or where we're doing Zoom and Microsoft Teams meetings and we're streaming videos all the time, this is a way to validate that quality of service is set properly. Domotz is going to alert you when you get a bad grade or when the performance could be improved. Okay? So
That's cool.
that's what this is about. Again, another tool in your tool chest, right? That makes Domotz such an awesome solution.
Oh yeah. No, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about now. So that's cool. I haven't heard it called buffer bloat, but I like that.
Yeah, it's usually just referred to as kind of a quality of service metric, right? But if you're dealing with quality of service at the ISP level, this is a way to validate what's going on.
I, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
We were just going through that. Are you able to show me or say, hey, these devices have no password, or they're using the default admin password, or password is horrible? Anything like that with the devices? Especially IoT devices, the security, people never manage those. So, out of curiosity.
Yep, we have in beta, okay, the ability to check for default username and passwords. I will tell you though, Garrett, the reason we have not released it is because a lot of systems nowadays, if they have too many failed attempts on a username or password, they will block that device.
Yeah.
And so in an IoT world, that can be detrimental to the system. So we have not fully published that. That being said, Domotz does try standard SNMP credentials like public and private as the V2 community strings on systems. And if those have not been changed, then we can automatically show data that comes from those devices. But it's always a best practice, and I hope that service departments and IT departments will change their community strings as an example.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking about, am I going on to a prospect's site doing network scanning for the first time? This is something I could.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's very difficult to do. But yeah, okay. Go ahead. Oh, by the way, JB, we have about 3-4 more minutes left before we start wrapping up. So just let you know.
Perfect. Let me just show this last thing here. Customized scripting. Domotz is Domotz has put itself into an area that I think is unique and even more powerful. You have the ability to write customized scripts to pull data from systems that are out there. These scripts, in fact, I'll show you a simple example here. I talked about this indoor air quality sensor. Right, we can write a script that will pull things like battery levels, CO2 levels, and whatnot. I mean, this is 74 lines of code. But when I look at what this device is pulling, we will see things like that data, okay, that's coming out of that system. In this example, I will tell you that we ran this script and it's actually pulling data from a cloud service, right? So this device is sitting on my home network, pushing data to the cloud. I'm pulling that data from the cloud back into Domotz, and then I can set alerts on it. So if I wanted to track things like humidity level or CO2 levels in this case and see when I have a spike and set an alert on that, do a push notification to Microsoft Teams, I can do exactly that. So this really does set Domotz apart from other players in the industry when it comes to infrastructure management. So this is a new feature that we released about a year ago. We're continuing to build out scripts, but I just think that this is such a powerful part of the Domotz platform. With that being said, what questions do you have, Garrett, in the last couple of minutes?
Well, the scripting. I'm sure as you know, that's scripting is very big in what we do because not a lot of things come out of the box, and I understand that. Now, what can I submit my own scripts, or do you guys do it, or you look at what I wrote, make sure I'm not,
Nope, you can create your own scripts.
And
Yep, you can actually click on new script, give it a name, and start coding away, right? It's simple JavaScript. But I want to point out that if there is something that you think Domotz should make available for others, we actually have a sales engineering team that is very willing to help and develop the script for you. In fact, these 176 scripts that are here are all made available because people asked for them. And we're doing about 9 to 10 a month that we can create. So, ask us what you want, and we will make it happen.
Okay. All right. So if I submit a script, is that something that's just for me, or is this something that could go, you guys take a look at and put it out in the community?
So if you were to submit a script, if you were to make your own script, it would stay within your environment, right? Here I'm creating a forward sync. Right.
I was just seeing that. I was like,
yeah,
wait, what?
So my truck, right, has APIs that are more used for status, but you can see things like the location of the vehicle. Not that I need that on my network, but when my truck is parked at home, I can see things like tire pressure levels. And I could do an alert on that, right? So we have people that have created scripts for Tesla chargers as well. This thing, Dante, right? This is an audio video system for an audio distribution inside of businesses. And you can set alerts on those as well. In fact, this will tell you, this particular one will look at when systems are not synchronizing properly, right? Or when their latency goes out of spec.
That's cool. We have to start wrapping up. This is really cool. You guys have definitely evolved a long way from way back when I was, kind of when you guys were. And anyway, this is amazing. Cloud's really done some cool stuff. And so for people who are watching, like, you have any last words for them? You guys do anything? Like, is there a free trial, NFRs, anything like that?
We do have both, right? So there are free trials. There's a 14-day free trial. I would encourage people to just go to domotz.com, sign up, deploy an agent, see how it works. Talk to our sales team, right? When you get into our program, right, we have two different business models. One where you can pay per device, and I'll just tell you the MSRP of the per device is $1.50 per device. We also have a per site model that's there. If you are dealing with smaller environments or you're a service provider that deals with many customers, there's different platforms depending on what your needs are. So we will work with you, but when you go into our program, our channel program, then you can get an NFR as well for your site or to demo systems or to validate and test things as you need to, like developing scripts.
Yeah, that's cool. And for everybody out there, I know we're streaming live. We're going to be wrapping up. This will be recorded, so feel free to drop any comments. Me, JB, we're kind of taking a look, see if we can, answer any questions. Or JB, really. Like you said, go to the website, or you can go to channelprogram.com and search for reviews. For them, because you're going to see a lot of MSPs who are, as I call them, in the trenches. Who will give like, hey, here's what we used, and all the good stuff, and it's definitely good insight. I think we're going to start wrapping it up. And thank you everybody for joining. And JB, this is awesome. I appreciate your time, man. This is really fascinating to see. So
we're excited about it. So I tell people to reach out to sales@domotz.com, right? We'll help you. Support@domotz.com is amazing. In fact, I'd tell you they're one of our best sales teams just because of how fast they respond to people and how well they can answer questions for people, anybody that's having trouble. But I look forward to chatting with some of you, and check us out.
Yeah, man, will do. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the next demo days, and I hope everybody has a great Monday and the rest of your week. See y'all out there.